we are honored to have with us as a keynote speaker right now, Adrien Treccani, who is the CEO of Metaco. Please, Adrien, join me on stage. So you may not know, but in May 2023, Metaco was acquired by Ripple, the leader in blockchain and crypto solution, for around $250 million. So I hope that's going to raise your interest. Please come and tell us your story. Welcome.
Thank you. I would like to quote a good friend of mine, a very successful Swiss entrepreneur, who told me at some point over lunch that had he known how stupid his original idea and ambition and how painful the journey would be, he would never have started. And so that there was a need for a certain amount of ignorance to be an entrepreneur. And oh God, was I ignorant. In 2015, when I started the company, I was already giving conferences like the one today, my hands in the air, preaching how tokenization would be the revolution of everything. I was literally explaining that the $1,000 trillion worth of traditional assets would turn into tokens, would turn into a blockchain quantity. And you know, when you start thinking of thousands of trillions of dollars worth of assets, those are the big numbers that potentially are exciting for a venture. And so started preaching this, started speaking with banks, and realized quite early that if you would have so much assets on chain, on the blockchain, this new technology that most of you have known under the name of Bitcoin or Ethereum, there would need to be infrastructure to manage such assets. And one way to do it would have been to store your coins, store your tokens on a mobile phone or on a piece of paper. But in practice, I always thought, well, in the future, whom will be managing this asset? Is it really going to be your phone, or are you going to trust someone else? And this was a very strange thinking process, given that blockchain had been invented to decentralize and to ensure no intermediation. But I thought at the time, if you end up with $1,000 trillion worth of assets, and there are, give or take, 10 billion human beings on the planet, well, the probability that each of these individuals has, in average, $100,000 on his mobile phone is very, very low. And so, founded a company and expected to be selling tokenization technology, storage technology, and quickly realized that there was actually no market at all. And I had to survive for multiple years, selling consulting services, gaining knowledge, creating a network, meeting banks and other institutions to finally realize that the market was starting to take off. But starting. Now we're almost a decade later. Is tokenization something which is at scale? Is it? You know, have we reached $1,000 trillion worth of assets tokenized on the blockchain? Well, the reality is that if we look at the numbers, the complete market capitalization of tokens today is of the order of $1 trillion. So it's 1,000x from what I expected it to be, smaller. So very, very far, and of course, a horrible market timing for us. At the same time, Metaco was a very tiny Lausanne-based company with just a few engineers, zero experience in entrepreneurship, zero experience in marketing and sales, and very limited capitals to grow the company. Very limited liquidity. As you know, we're not an American, the way of doing business is not the same in Switzerland and in America. In America, if you have the network and the credibility, you could easily raise 15, 20 million as a first round. Here I had to work with a few $100,000, which I raised through friends and family and a few private investors. But one advantage of this approach is that it forced us as a company to focus. We said, well, what is the market which is most profitable if we end up succeeding in capturing it? We could not go after thousands of names. We would not have succeeded. So we said, our conclusion at the time was, well, if we have to select a market, and we are selling infrastructure to secure these digital assets, which was our whole ambition, this market has to be the biggest players on the market, which today manage the assets. And those were the largest banks in the world, the custodian banks, the JP Morgans, the Citis, the Standard Chartered, the DBS, and the other ones. And of course, as you can imagine, in Switzerland, the market is limited itself, because how can you, grow a business which only targets large banks from Switzerland, focusing on Switzerland? If the target had been private banks, potentially something could have happened. But custodian banks, we have a few, not so many. And so we were forced to go international with a very small team of less than 10 people, with very limited capitals. But we decided to go where the market would call us. So we went to Singapore, we went to Germany. Already at this time, we were speaking with the largest American banks in the US, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and the others. And, you know, as it often happens with entrepreneurship, a lot of this ended up nowhere, but some of this turned out to be a success. Some of these banks actually saw something in Metaco and gave us a chance. This led us into a first financing round. We raised $3 million as a seed investment in 2018. Then we raised $17 million in a Series A round in 2020. And momentum started to appear. And I can tell you, momentum within the banking industry, to reach this, it's a massive effort. Banks have so much inertia, so much risk aversion, are so slow in making decisions, are so constrained by the regulations in terms of RFPs, requests for proposal, in terms of onboarding requirements, whether it's for compliance, for risk, cybersecurity, etc., that we had to learn all about this, and we had to pack so much successes that finally making press release about it would create a momentum where it would lead to new other clients. I think Metaco reached a point last year where we considered that we were going to win the entire large banking market. At the same time, interest rates were going back up, liquidity was drying up, venture capital was becoming tougher and tougher, valuations were becoming also less attractive, and we got to a point where we asked ourselves, what do we need to be going to the next stage? And the short answer was a lot of money, right? A lot of money, because you have to be patient, you have to be able to wait for these banks to change their minds when there is COVID happening, and they've already told you, Adrien, you're going to win this deal. But then they change their mind because suddenly cryptocurrencies and tokenization become last in the pile because they have other issues to solve. And realize, well, I have to have patient investors. I have to have a lot of liquidity. I have to be willing to invest and potentially push the profitability of the company to further in the future. And therefore, I have to raise a big ticket. We arrived to a point where last year we had, give or take, $50 million on the table that we could have closed as a Series B round, and an acquisition opportunity appeared. Now, I'm going to give you an anecdote here, which is, I think, at least for me, was funny in a negative way, but it was not the first acquisition opportunity of Metaco. Actually, it was the third one. And for the previous ones, I had each and every time be very cautious about confidentiality, because when these things leak, and when the market learns that you're about to be acquired, a lot of potential risks are flagged by your clients, which are concerned that potentially you're going to abandon them as clients, you're going to change your strategy, your buyer is going to assimilate everything, and is just going to consider you as a team and a product, potentially. We knew it would not be the case with this new buyer, because there had been intense discussions about the strategy, but this risk was here, and of course was very anxious that this information would leak on the market. And so I got into a call with this potential buyer and told them, well, I'm okay entering into a discussion, but there is one thing I want to ask, which is that you close the information flow so strictly that only a few people are aware on your side, so that there is zero chance that this thing leaks on the market. And they did. However, this was late in the evening, Californian time on their side, so 10 p.m. on the Swiss side. Next Monday, after one of the calls with this company, I wake up 6 a.m., take my phone, like every morning as a CEO, you look at the most urgencies, and I see one email from one of the top journalists at one of the blockchain newspaper. And this guy is painfully competent, right? Every single time he contacts you, you know that he's onto something, and he's always 90% right. 90% of the time he's right, and you have to dodge the bullet and channel him to a different information so that he forgets about you. And I was about to announce a big client, so I see in my list of email, this email where he says, Adrien, can we speak? So, well, great, perfect. I can announce my new client, and he's going to pump it, and he's going to make some more noise on the market. Open the email, and he says, Adrien, I've heard the rumor that Metaco is about to be acquired by Ripple. 12 hours later, 12 hours after the discussion. So all of this to say, creating a company is hard. I think you all know it. A lot of people, I saw a lot of startups out there. Making mistakes is the norm. One of the biggest learnings on my side has been if you take all of your mistakes at face value, you're never going to recover, right? You have to realize and create a perspective where you understand that, in fact, the other startups and your competitors are doing all of the same mistakes, unless they are recurring entrepreneurs that potentially have gained so much experience and are backed by big American companies, but then there are other issues that they're facing. You always have to assume that the problems you're facing, the other guys are also facing them. And the best protection that you can have, and you have an engineering background, so it was very, very hard for me to understand this, you have to create a big marketing powerhouse. I'm an engineer. I always thought you win the market because you have a great product. That's absolutely incorrect. You win the market because the market thinks you have the best product, not because you have it. And how do you get the markets to think that you have the best product? Well, you flood the market with information. And it costs you money. So you have to have the people, and you have to have the budget. And so one of the most important things that I didn't do, but I would do in my next venture the day it happens, is I would not raise funds to invest in a big engineering team and a big product team on day one. I would raise to invest in a marketing and sales team and ensure that even before I have a product, the market already thinks I'm the market leader. And that's a very, very difficult thing to get to when you're an engineer and you're Swiss, because as you know, Americans are used to selling things they don't have. Well, sorry for the ones that don't do it this way, but that's true in many ways. With the Swiss mindset, you're used to first building to a level of acceptable satisfaction, and then transforming this into a marketing story and selling it. But while you do it, the Americans are already selling something they don't have. And they're already raising funds on something they don't have. And they're already signing deals on something they don't have. And of course, all of the sort of, let's call it, all of the difficulties to find the right balance. Because if you sell something you don't have and you cannot get roughly on time, if you sign a client, then you're going to be qualified as being incompetent, as being untrustworthy. So potentially for me, the biggest experience or learning has been how to optimize between selling a little bit ahead of time and then being able to execute on what you promise. And finding this right sort of time to oversell, if you wish, or time to execution that is aligned with what the market expects. Of course, if you sell to banks, you know that when you sign a bank, it may take literally 18 months between the time you sign and the time they actually use the solution in production. So it means that you can oversell by 6 months, for instance. Yes, okay. You can say, well, you can also be a bit transparent. It's not entirely production ready, but yeah, I have it. It's in the pipe. If you sell to clients which are more retail or have a very fast sales cycle, of course you cannot oversell by 6 months because they're going to test it on day 2, in particular if they're technical and they're agile. So I think this is one of the big learnings on my side. Learn where to invest your marketing effort, your sales effort, and ensure that you are ambitious about what you have to sell, and sometimes marginally, slightly dishonest, because you know that you can do it. If you have the right peers in your team, if you're able to create this perception of your company that you're serious, the market can believe you, that you are going to deliver, a lot can be forgiven. A lot can be forgiven. And again, you have to come back to what are the competitors doing? They're doing the same thing, and they're doing worse. You have no idea how many times I have lost a deal or almost lost a deal because our competitors were promising something that we knew they didn't have, and they were willing to promise with a more aggressive timeline and something which was completely unrealistic. We were not willing to go as far because we knew it was going to hurt our credibility, and therefore we lost or almost lost a deal. So this calibration exercise is so important. So now, I'm in a company which has been acquired. It's obviously a very different mindset, but the beauty of it is that we have remained largely independent as an acquisition target, so the transition has been relatively smooth. It's a company that has $25 billion in their treasury, so it's a company which has different sort of issues. It's not about having enough liquidity. It's about what's the best allocation strategy to grow as fast as possible, the American way. And so a lot of new experiences that I hope I will be able to share next time I join such an event. Thank you very much.